Welcome to the Dark Arts Paranormal Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carr. Kristen is off tonight. She's not feeling well, so please send your positive energy and vibes her way. It seems we have contracted yet another flu, and this has been a hell of a year for sickness and flus, supposedly because of COVID and being shut in and people are getting out finally. And it seems to be getting us. I mean, I've been sick, I don't know how many times in the last 3 or 4 months. It's ridiculous. But she is off tonight. She was not feeling good. So you're stuck with me. I hope that's all right. We have a great show for you guys tonight. Before we get to our guest, I did want to mention one little story that I came across in the news. And this concerns a certain Aaron Rodgers, NFL player. Aaron Rodgers has been out in the news talking about a shadowy figure he has been seeing after his ayahuasca fueled trips in Peru during the 2020-22 off seasons. Aaron says he sometimes will appear in the distance, usually veiled by darkness, holding the corpse of a dead rabbit, sometimes a blade. Teammates are concerned for the quarterback, who now fears being in the locker room alone. He claims that the lights started to flicker and turn off one by one. He says, "It was behind me, not even breathing hard. I heard its feet hitting the ground in a constant rhythm. I ran to my car, opened the door, slammed it behind me, and locked it as fast as I could." So that is Green Bay quarterback Aaron Rodgers, per the Wisconsin News.today.com. Pretty interesting. Lots of you folks out there put up some of the banter between Echo Leaf and Jack Kilowatt prior to the show. You guys are freaking hilarious. Love you guys. See, Carol Garcia is out there. Hello, Carol. George, what's going on tonight? What's happening? There's Kristen. Hey, baby. Hope you're feeling better. Mr. Greg Koss. We just watched Perfectly Normal Paranormal Communications with Mr. Greg Koss and Reginald Reynolds, who was fantastic. Reggie Randall. I don't know why I screw that up. I'm so sorry, Reggie. Scott Horn is out there. What's going on, buddy? There's Reggie. Why do I call you Reggie Reynolds? Is there a Reggie Reynolds, like an actor or something? I don't know why that sticks. I'm getting older, Reggie. And there's our guest, Mr. Anthony Ceballos. In caps, Kristen. He says, "Get well, Kristen." Hey, Paul, how you doing? All right. So without a whole lot of further ado here, let's get right to talking to our friend. And he has over 40 years in the paranormal. He's the founder of Texas Wraith Hunters and the host of the podcast Wraith World. He is Mr. Anthony, the Wraith Prince Ceballos. What's up, sir? How you doing?
How's everybody doing? Good.
Dark Horse.
Yeah, you did pretty good on the name. You got it right.
Well, yeah, I had to practice. Lots of folks out there tonight. Say hi to you. See what's going on.
Oh, we got hello, everybody. Let's see what there's.
See some new folks.
Yeah, we got there Joshua Lee Garza. That's my Texas Wraith Hunter right there. My co-host.
Excellent. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The Wraith World Podcast. Setting the world on fire, my friend. This is a wonderful thing. So you've been doing this over 40 years.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you just had a birthday.
Yeah,
you don't have to say how old you are, but I know you're at least 40. If I had to guess, and maybe win a T-shirt like Greg Koss did,
Yeah.
cheater.
I'm gonna get with him. Yeah, they told me they told me after that, all I gotta do is go to your Facebook, right?
He
So
told me the story. I was laughing.
I didn't think about that.
I'm sure he's laughing. The
Yeah,
owl's
he
behind
got
him
me.
right now. Yeah. Yeah. So happy birthday! I know it's your birthday this week,
Yeah, it
and
was a couple of days ago.
yeah, I
I'm 2 days old.
now when you say you've been over 40 years in the paranormal, that does make you a pretty young man. So I'm assuming you had some sort of childhood experiences with the paranormal. And
I
maybe we'll
did.
start there. And tell us about that because that's something that interests myself and Kristen quite a bit is childhood experiences.
Yeah, it started for me for when I was about 5 or 6 years old, and actually, I'll try not to make it too long, but I believe it started when I was five because when I was 5 years old, I actually died,
Right.
and I was leaning back on a chair, and rocking back and forth. Like how kids are, we like to tip our chairs back, and I ended up. What I remember, and it's crazy because you know how most people can remember when they were 2 years old and all that. I mean, like I
Barely.
guess one of my memories of that was that I still remember real good is I felt like something. I felt like something pushed me. Like I was leaning back, on the back legs of the chair, and then I felt like something pushed me. It was in my grandmother's bedroom, and she had that old style of bed that's wooden on the corners. It's just solid wood, and I ended up falling back, and I hit the soft part of behind my neck. So that corner hit me right in that, I guess, cerebral cortex part,
Okay.
and I don't remember anything after that. My mom had told me that when the ambulance got there, they had taken me to the hospital, and that I had died for 5 minutes. And so I don't know if that has something to do with it or something like that.
I'm going to say probably.
Because after that, I started to see. Really, I just started to see a lot of demonic things at first, and I could see things around my grandmother. I could see things in the house, walking around, shadow people. Now that I know what they are, and it just started when I was 7 or 8, it just started to increase. And of course, back in that day, we couldn't really didn't know how to explain things or anybody that would even believe us other than our parents. I mean, if they believed us. And so there was no kind of counseling or anything like that. Because if you did get into that counseling back then, they would just put you away.
Yeah, they would.
Yeah,
People forget that there are a lot more open-minded medical professionals today than there were before, and they're still a bit closed-minded to a lot of this stuff. But back then, you were just, hey, commit me.
yeah, you were done.
Yeah,
So
straight
yeah,
jacket, break it out. What size are you? Good job. Speaking of which, Greg says he's an extra large. I don't know what he's talking about with that.
Yeah, I got you, Greg. Yeah, so I just started, growing up with it. Of course, trying it's a nightmare. I mean, from what I remember, it was terrible um, to be able to see things that especially when I went to school. I would see things around kids. The third. I mean, like in the fourth, fifth grade. I remember that I could see things around the kids in the school, and it was just very hard. Or I could hear almost kind of like I want to say that I could hear their. I don't know if I heard their thoughts or what, but I mean, I could figure the kids out, you know, and which kind of it makes a person start to go within themselves, So I really
Sure.
didn't have really too many friends or anything like that because I just didn't want to be around people because they were so loud, but not loud, voicefully loud in their head, you know.
Were you an
And
only child?
yes, no, no, for I'm the oldest one, shoot, but I got like 20 something years on my brother.
Yeah, well, there you go. You're basically an only
Yeah,
child.
right,
Kristen and I were the same way, which by default leaves you with a lot of time in your own head.
right. Because I actually didn't grow up with my parents. I grew up with my grandmother, and so it was just me. And she would work at night, And so back then it was okay to leave your kids alone. Another thing, back then you're 5, 6 years old, your parents just left you alone in the house. Of course you can't do that anymore. Everything was
Yeah,
different
right.
back then.
Right. Yeah, it was totally different. I lived with my parents, but well, my mom and my father on every other weekend. But I had so much time by myself, and I know Kristen was the same way. It was like, all right, go play. Go play in the woods, whatever. Come home later. It was expected. You weren't
Right.
supposed to be home pestering the parents.
Right.
But, as an only child then, and anyways, you had all this time to really take in nature, which was a good thing, um, and time to think about things and pick up the subtleties, right? Because I
Right.
think a lot of the paranormal is very subtle. We're talking about subtle spirits and communications and that sort of thing. And
Right.
you were picking up on something that sounds a little dark in the first, and a
Yeah.
bit like
No,
Kristen, right?
mine
With
were
the shadow
aggressive.
people pushing and aggressive, and
Yeah, mine were
yeah,
aggressive. I mean, it was like that from the beginning, and then, like I said, as I started to get older, and then, like you were saying, I did stay by myself a lot, and so I had that time to, well, it's kind of like it just didn't leave me alone. So, and also too, I didn't have anybody to tell me, oh no, it's just your imaginary friend, or it's not real. I didn't have
right.
anybody to say that. So really, it was like a weed. It was just free just to grow. So I started to develop very early in age because it was never stopped. Nowadays, people can tell you, well, no, you don't really see that. Well, for a time, I know now it's more different, but there are times it was just imaginary friend. It's not real. There's no boogeyman under the bed or anything like that.
Hmm.
So they're really shutting down the child's abilities. That's what they're doing. And so I didn't have that. So I would just reign free, and so through all the years, it just developed, and it developed really fast in a very very early age. By the time I got into my teens, I mean, I was already, I didn't know it was paranormal because, back then there still wasn't anything called paranormal. I mean,
Right.
I mean,
Not on a mass scale.
right, not in a mass scale. Ed and Lorraine Warren were around, but, it wasn't like it
Yeah.
is now,
There were some witchy folks like Ceballos. There were
Right,
people like Hans Holzer writing books. But it was not on TV.
right.
And TV was pretty important. Was the internet basically back then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so it developed really fast and really strong. And it's always been like, for me, I would just say more of the darker things. I don't know why, but it was. And as I started to get into my teens, of course, then I started to hang around with other people that were not exactly like me, but they like to dabble with a lot of other things. And it happened to be dark. I don't know why. It was always been dark. And then so you start getting into those darker things, and I started to learn those arts in my 20s.
Okay, you're
And
talking about a cult. When you say dark, you were interested in this, maybe
yeah,
because of some of the things that happened in your childhood, right?
right. Well, I mean, a cult is a word that means hidden knowledge. You know what I mean? I know the world here's a cult, but hey, I think the Bible's a cult because it's hidden knowledge, right? So you could use the
It
same word.
certainly is. Depending on who you talk to and what might be coded in there. Yeah.
Right. So, but yeah, we can use the word dark, just the darker things. When people conjuring up stuff, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Using their abilities for negative, to hurt people and stuff like that. So I did go down that road, unfortunately, and learn. I would say it was good and bad because you get to see. Now I know the difference between light and dark. You know, between light magic and dark magic.
Okay. Well,
And
let's talk about that a little bit because that's a very fascinating subject in and of itself. I think uh, good and evil are such subjective things. I mean, there are certain things in the world we can say are definitely good, you know, helping an old lady cross the street. There are definitely bad things in the world that happen, killing children and things of that nature, which was an acceptable practice not that long ago in world history. But in today's terms, we would say, oh yeah, no, that's not good. What is it about uh, magic? And let me add one more question because Kristen asked here if it was Santeria What was the path you went down, more specifically, and then we'll get into the good evil stuff.
Yeah. Well, at first, it was more of the magic spells, I guess.
It was witchcraft.
Right. And then, but that was funny that she mentioned that because I just saw that because I did get involved into some other activities that I'm not really proud of for a while, for a long time, and um, and got to see people do things like that where they use um, that type of craft for protection.
Hmm.
Which they're really ruthless when they do this. I mean, they actually do snatch up people and take them and sacrifice them and things like that.
Oh yeah, we don't do that, but Kirsten and I are both, you know, we're both witches, if you will, if you want to use that word.
Right.
Sorry, we like that stuff because there's a lot of communication with spirit involved in it, and there are beings there that are not non-human entities that you can talk to and that sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
Do tell, please let us know what was the insight between the good and the evil, and how did you see that?
Well, at the time, I didn't see it. I mean, the times since I was all involved in it, I mean, I really didn't see any of the good, the good in it. But just being around it and everything and seeing this, blood sacrifices, bloodletting. I mean, it was just some stuff that was really out there, and the things that people don't really talk about. I mean, you may have people on your show and they talk, but they really don't talk about a lot of it, the essential part of it. They just give you whatever they want you to know, not what they really do.
Right. You think they're prettying it up? In what way?
Well, like I said, like that. When I was around all of that, they would use these things for these rituals for protection, and of course, I think you can pretty much figure it out what they were being protected from. It wasn't from other; it was from the authorities. Put it that way.
Okay.
So yeah, it was.
Are you meaning like human authorities, like the police and government structures, that kind of thing?
Right.
They needed protection for what they were doing.
Right.
So their real need was something that was illegal.
Right. So that's what I mean. I mean, unfortunately, yes, I wasn't.
See, that is a dark road. I mean, that's something like, her and I have nothing to do with. We don't do anything illegal.
Right.
But the idea of maybe, pricking your finger for blood or something.
Oh, no, this is way different.
But I think you're talking about something completely different.
Yeah, this is way different. I mean, like I said, unfortunately, I was involved in that, but I mean, that's for a long time, and but
people disappear, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, there's there's things that are just blocked out. Like actually, this is the first time I ever actually got. I've talked about my past before, but not. I'm kind of like just right now still going on top of it. Really never brought it out.
It was going to be kind of fluff, right? It was going to be easy.
Yeah. Well, some of us just walk down that road. I mean, just. I mean, I guess I don't want to blame it on the place that I'm originally from Dallas, so I'm from a big town, and then like I said, actually the people that I was with, I would get paid. They would pay me to be with them because I could pick up on things when people were around. So say the authorities were coming, I would notify them, hey, you know what, we can't go there because this is fixing to happen.
You could see the outcome,
right? So the thing is, so I actually got paid to do that. Of course, back then there's no morals or no anything like that. You know what I mean? It's just it's just money. So, but at the same time, like I said, it was my abilities that really that they were using me for. And
so do you think maybe your near-death experience had something to do with the abilities you would pick up later?
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. That I don't know if I was just born with it or if it happened when that fall happened. Because everything, like I said, that's the furthest memory that I have, and I know that from that point on, especially when I was 8 years old, oh man, I was seeing things everywhere. I mean, ugly things, and around people or even around my grandmother, in the house. That's when I really, from a really early age, I really just got within myself, And then through my teens, I was always like that, and even in my adult years, when I finally got away from that. Because I had to relocate, and move out to the desert where I am at now. And I've been here 23 years. So
So
when
you
I
feel safe where you are now.
no, not really. It took me a long time. I'm not
I'm kind of
safe.
surprised in the way you're on a show like this. Like,
Well, because the people are already probably dead. You know what I mean? They're probably dead and gone. You know. So, but it did when I first did move here. I did. It was very hard because there was no way when Facebook first came out. There was no way I was going to get on Facebook. You know, especially now. You know, we could find you back then. I mean, I could imagine now. Now it's really easy.
yeah,
So, but it was really. It's been a really hard. It's been hard for me. It hasn't really been that enjoyable as far as with the abilities. You know, going into walking into Walmart. You know, it's like a stadium of people just talking. Then you couldn't understand why I would feel sad or why I would feel angry or all these different emotions that I would pick up on. I didn't know. I always thought they were mine until it took a long time to start to figure out that some of these things aren't mine. It's other
I can relate
people's.
to that. I understand. Like sometimes the energies around you can take over your own energy, or seemingly so.
Right.
And then you find yourself in a certain emotional state that you shouldn't necessarily be in. Why do I feel this way? And that's the psychic part, and you don't realize it because the neon light doesn't flash and go, oh, hey, there's the psychic thing going. You have
Right.
to recognize it within yourself.
And so yeah, and then as I started growing, I mean, as I got older, I did start to figure out some things, and then I did start getting a hold of some books. And when I got a hold of the books, that's when I started to get the knowledge that started to really giving me some kind of explanation of what was going on. But yes, there were books on on spells and that sort of thing, and um, but it was more of the I don't know what you call it. I forgot right now. But it was more when I started to read the books, then it started to give me a little bit more insight on what was going on as I got older, and especially once I did get out because I was involved in there for like I don't know 15 years, and then when I finally got out, I finally was able to break loose and get away from there, which I didn't ever thought I would, but I did, and then what's crazy about it is that all these gifts had developed. I mean, and I knew that there was another side of to this life. That this is not just it. When we die, it's not just we're dead. There are other beings out there, and I actually ended up going to the Christian church, and then became an ordained pastor in that, and did that for about 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
But that was even harder than trying to be just on my own because of course it was a charismatic church, so it's a lot of speaking in tongues and a lot of deliverance ministries that I was involved in, casting out demons and
Speaking
all
in
this.
tongues. Wow, I got to stop you a little bit right there because that is such an interesting thing. If that is not channeling, what is? And it's acceptable by the Christian faith.
Well, I used to hear them, and even though I did, like I said, I did become ordained in that, and then and was involved in actually helping other churches grow for like I said about 10 years. uh when I would hear them speak in tongues, I've always heard, I didn't believe, I not that I didn't believe, I knew that it wasn't them. Like I could hear other things when they would talk, and I understood everything, like I said, I'm very well versed in the Bible, but I don't I've gotten away from that
So
because
you could hear yourself when it would occur. You would channel things, speak in tongues yourself,
yeah,
and you
I
hear
did.
something in the background, like a subtle
Yeah,
voice.
I mean, but at the time,
That's
like,
wicked interesting.
yeah, at
Because
the
you're
time,
going with wicked.
at the time when I heard it, and I would see them fall down on the ground because the pastor or the evangelist or the prophet, whoever was there doing the service, would lay hands on a person and they would fall down and they say, "Okay, we cast the demon out." And I used to look at them and I would tell them, I said, "Hey, I don't think you cast it out. I think it just passed out on you, or it's just playing with you." I've never. I mean, it was very hard for me, even though I wanted to be a part of it. I just always felt like I could never connect. You know, and then I have, like I said, well versed in the Bible. I mean, I even went to seminary school for it, and
Wow.
but I still had something inside me that just didn't click. And here I am again, just like all my life. I could never click with something. I could never just grab onto it. There was always something pushing me away, like because I could see things that weren't right. You know what I mean? Like, okay, y'all are doing all this, but that just doesn't seem right. And of course, you still can't ask questions, even though you're in the church, because either you'll get kicked out or you don't know anything. So that's a lot of spiritual things going on in the church. So now I won't even go into church. There's no way. I mean, not because I'm scared. It's just because I don't believe it. Put it that way.
I don't believe too much in organized religion. I
Yeah.
mean, I think we're supposed to figure it out for ourselves, but there are signs, there are guide posts out there, that you grasp and you work your way through it. And you're clearly a spiritual person, perhaps brought on by um, your accident as a child. I think that may be part of it. George says it was, I believe, Anthony's accident that released his gift. And there's a ton of comments out here.
Yeah.
I try to get to you guys, but
But
thank
but
you. Wait, I don't want
but
to
I
interrupt too much.
but I did find out later on in life that witches do run in my family.
Hmm. So do you
So
think there might be something to the hereditary
it
factor?
it could be. So I've
You
never
know,
figured out if it's because
that was
they're all
that
they're all
was a
long
big
and gone.
too in like the 1960s. They used to talk about that, like who, what bloodline are you, and even into the 70s with Wicca. If you were truly Wiccan person, you might have had a blood relative. I'm not so sure it matters. I think it does matter to kind of look into your own history, maybe your DNA and that kind of stuff, and see where your family comes from. But I wouldn't even limit yourself to that. You
Yeah.
know, the things that interest you for a reason.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know, but that's interesting that you might have a bloodline connection to what exactly?
Right. But then when I got into about 20, somewhere in my 20s, I really don't remember when I actually started to um, like take pictures of the things that I would see. And of course back then I was thinking about it earlier, and it's I have totally forgotten about it. It's back then. I remember I had those little cameras that you used to wind up and you take a picture
Oh
and then
yeah,
you wind it.
I do. Bring
Yeah,
it to the next bit of film that
yeah.
was
And then I had to ask my grandmother, "Can you please go
ready for
take this to
exposure.
go get developed?" You take the little roll to the little store
The
and
photomat booth.
yeah, photo mat thing.
Hmm.
And then so that was pretty cool because those cameras is something that we use now. You know, I mean, we do use some paranormal groups like to use the old school cameras. And then I
Yeah.
remember for Christmas, I wanted the one step Polaroid camera that came out.
Oh yes. Yeah. The
And
Polaroids are still out there.
right, and they
The
use
film
them.
is still expensive.
Well, I ended up getting one for Christmas, and it was like the very first one step. This is what it was called, the one step Polaroid.
Okay.
And I used to take pictures with that. And I mean, I wish I still had them, but that was so long ago. I mean, I don't even know what happened to those pictures. It was another city, another life. But that's when I started to actually take pictures like that. And then I did. I could look at the picture and then I could see in there.
You can
Not
see the image in the picture.
yeah, I could
This is
see.
super interesting and synchronistic because just prior to this interview, I was looking at this book. It's a book I've not really dug into too well, but I've had it for a while, and it's by Lloyd Auerbach, called Paranormal Casebook. And some of the questions I wrote, I told you I took a little sheet of notes, right, before the show, were about photographing ghosts. So it's interesting you brought it up and not
Yeah.
me. So, because he makes some very good points early into that book about photographing ghosts and what that might be.
Right.
Because you're talking about a subtle energy, right? When we're talking about a ghost, a spirit, a non-human entity, even maybe something above a spirit, and they don't really reflect light. In fact, their gig is, here I am, I'm kind of invisible and I can screw with you, or send you a message one way or another. And when you take a picture, the question that he poses in there is that the person taking the photograph somehow through like maybe psychokinesis, putting an imprint in it. Is it a reflection? Is it just with digital cameras, and this wouldn't apply to Polaroids? Is it a dropout of pixels, right? Which is something that happens a lot. Yeah, please go on, because this is totally interesting and relevant to what I was already done.
Well, it's
Just
like we were talking about earlier when how the mind can see faces. We don't know if it's just a mind
paranoia.
or is it actually which I can also. I mean, I can look at stuff. I hear like when I go to New Mexico and I go close to the mountains, and when I look at the mountains, I mean, I swear I can see native faces in the mountains and in the rock. I mean, and I'm not thinking about it. So to me, I know I've heard this and I've played around with it also, where well maybe it's just me, it's just because I want to see something, but I've learned how to clear my mind a long time ago. Where even in my investigations where we go, I always clear myself because I don't want to bring anything of me in it. So if there's something there, there's going to be something there, and I'm going to see it. Or with people. I don't like to know things, beforehand. I don't want to know what's going on or anything. Just let me figure it out. So, but yeah, but when I started to take, I'm just going like, that's when I first started like to take pictures. I didn't even know I was already doing the paranormal thing, you know, back then, because, there were no shows or anything like that yet. And, so it wasn't until, let me see, I'm just trying to trying to fast forward a little bit. I know I'm skipping a lot. But yeah, I've had a ton of experiences. I mean, literally all my life.
It's really interesting, especially this kind of dark background, using your psychic abilities and then kind of having to get away from it. Realizing you still have these, trying to find answers, looking toward Christianity for those answers,
Right.
then kind of leaving it, saying, "Well, yeah, I don't think you have all the answers." Where do you end up after that?
Well, then that's when I got away from when like I said, I was 10 years in there, real hardcore in it, and it just finally got to the point where I just did not agree with it anymore. The more knowledge I gained, just like the dumber I got. It's like not the dumber, I shouldn't say that. The more knowledge I gained, the more questions, of course, that I had. Like, okay, this don't make sense, and finally just ended up leaving it, and of course got a lot of backlash from it because so I was really well known here in Odessa and in the community. So people running into me and saying, "Well, hey, what church did you go to?" "Well, I don't go to church anymore." "Well, how can you not go to church anymore? You used to be this and that." So yeah, okay, now leave me alone. You know what I mean? Kind of like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I got away from it for the next 10 years. I did another 10 years. In those 10 years, in the last 10 years, or what's been more now, like maybe 18 years now. But after that 10 years, I actually, because I've always driven a truck out here because it's the oil field. So I guess that's the day jobs out here. To make good money. Driving a truck. And so I did a lot of deliveries or worked out in the oil field. So I was always in the desert. So I kind of went into the desert deeper alone for the next 10 years. And that's where I really just started to try to discover what all this is about, because it was way too much. I just knew that I had too many things for it not to be nothing. You know, there had to be more to this because
Yes.
I knew too many things about certain people. Or I go in a house, I can put my hands on the door, and I can see things. I get the visions in my mind. I can see the past in it. It's like it's like almost like I shared a little bit of many abilities, but I think that just came from all the years that I spent alone. So I guess it's kind of like a monk. Monks go and they spend all these half their life alone and
Uh,
practice what they're doing.
idle time,
Right.
time to yourself. It's something people don't get enough of anymore, because we have smartphones and we have so many distractions. It's hard to just have any time to yourself to just contemplate, not necessarily not necessarily meditate, but contemplate the events around you and take it in, including subtle energies.
Right. So when like I spent all that time by myself, but actually I wasn't just doing nothing. I was actually digging even more and developing my abilities even I mean, to a higher degree because I had that idle time in a way. I'm sitting under the tree, but I'm not just sitting there. I'm doing something. So I actually I was able to harness them a little bit better because at one time I just used a lot of anger, because I was still like that. So before it's kind of like if you did something to me, I'm going to come back at you and I'm going to get you because I'm using anger as fuel, as that energy because that's all I knew. And even after the church thing, I mean, I was angry about that because, here I go and I spent 10 years of that in there. And I thought people were cool. I thought this was a place that we're going to, finally somebody that's not going to use me. Then you find out it's no different than the people out in the world. And I'm not saying maybe every church is like that, but I know that the majorities
Sure.
are,
Right. People are people.
Right.
People, don't like to change. People are human, and the human condition is one of pain. People go through a lot of stuff, and everybody has a story, and we're all trying to mesh and figure it out, right? And sometimes that doesn't go so well. It gets a little squirrely.
Yeah, it gets a lot squirrely. So I really had a lot of time to develop, and I was, yes, I did get very, very strong, and it really, really fast. Like I said, at a young age, it just kept on going. So the older I got through, the decades, that's just the stronger it got, because it never stopped. And then, but fast forward a little bit more. After all that, and after these 10 years that I spent just away from everything, away from all the noise, you know, able to just to go in deeper into meditations and start to cross over into other to astral project, astral
Mhm.
plane, and learn all about that, which I learned that at a younger age, at a young age also. But now that I'm older, I just was able
Me
to
too.
be by myself and be able to harness that even stronger.
I think I was better at it when I was younger.
Yeah.
I was in middle school. I had cassette tapes that had like a guided meditation on it to put you into a trance state and an astral project. And I had some amazing experiences at that time, and I've had them since. Um, but I don't have the ability to do it on command. It's one of the many things on my list to get better
It's
at.
not that hard.
you know, well, it is. Sometimes it's hard,
Yeah.
and waking up in a dream. There are different exercises you can do to do that to catch yourself at the right state to be out and running. And I probably overthink the whole thing myself.
Yeah.
But do you practice it regularly now? Do you
It's
astral project often?
it's getting yourself into the alpha state, and then it'll make it a lot easier. And but of course, like, yeah, like you say, I was little, when I was younger, yeah, it was a lot easier because back then, I mean, I did use a lot of drugs back then too. I mean, so that kind of
Mm,
had me flying all the
no
time.
one's judging here. Don't worry.
Hey, it's the
I
real
don't judge
deal.
on anything. I have like lots of church going friends and all that kind of stuff. And I don't go. I totally respect their higher power and what they feel from it, but I can understand like going and then just being a little bit disappointed. Like that it didn't have all the answers for you and you kept moving on.
Right. So
Yeah.
yeah, the drugs do help.
Right.
And I mean,
Like the ayahuasca story I mentioned at the
right,
front of the show,
right,
right? With the quarterback there from the Packers,
right.
uh, Aaron Rodgers. He now sees a hat man since he took ayahuasca. So I don't know why that would bring it about, but perhaps there was just something not right in his head and a vulnerability, which I think is the thing with childhood experiences. Children are vulnerable, right? They have a belief system that is completely different than that of an adult, which makes them wide open to something that's predatory.
Yeah, yeah, I believe that. And okay, let me see. Oh, now I was just looking at the comments. I got kind of sidetracked there.
Yeah, there's quite a few. Sorry, guys. As Philip
Yeah,
Wyatt says, boo. Hey, what's up, Phil? Irene Takura is out there. Lots of good friends. Joshua Dixon, Linda Judd, George. There's a ton of comments, and I'm sorry, guys. I'm not getting to them all. But this is a great conversation. and I want you all to hear as much as you can in the time we have allotted.
So, hey, we actually got all the time we want. It's our own podcast.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true, man. I got time if you got time.
Yeah, what the-
No, all right.
Have you seen my podcasts? How long they go?
You've seen some of ours. You know, go that way, but I just, politely do that.
But no, I got all the time. I can be out here all night.
Beautiful. Let's do it.
Yeah, getting back there. Let me see, where was I at? Okay, got out of the Christian church and this and that. So, yeah, so my gift has really never stopped. I mean, like I said, they keep growing. And I did, just to kind of backtrack just a little bit, I did get into the darker sides of the magic arts. I did learn a lot of that, and then, but of course, at those times, I hated anything to do with God or anything like that. I didn't even know who God was, but I just knew that if there is a God, you're an asshole. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know if I can cuss or not.
You can swear all you want.
Okay, well, I mean, that's just how it was. I was really angry. So that fueled and it gave me that negative energy. And of course, the dark side is strong, and just like the light is strong. So I went down that path. So I actually got to, after so long, when I started to finally figure these things out that I hated so much. But then now I look back at it, being older, and I'm really thankful for the times that I did for all that time that I did go through, because I did get to see things that people don't see. There's not a lot of people may talk about magic and spells and witchcraft and this, but have no idea really what they're even doing or what they're talking about.
In what way? Please elaborate on that.
Because
there are so many books of spells. And let me set this up a little bit. If you go on Amazon and you say, all right, there are so many budding witches out there, right, that are young, they're going on Amazon, something we did not have, you and I as kids,
right?
A web page to go to with like 1,000 different books on witchcraft. It was very tough to find information on this stuff as a child. Now there's all these things, right? And what are they? What's good, what's bad? You don't really know, right?
Right. Well, it's like a friend of mine says, today we have a lot of Spencer witches. Spencer, the store, yeah, Spencer at the mall.
Hot Topic.
Right, Hot Topic Spencer witches.
Sure.
Go in there, skate a couple of books, and wham bang. Okay, now you're all of a sudden you got this power. Well, to develop this power, it really takes years. It takes a lifetime, And not only that, is that you have to have a mentor or you have to study under someone. If you were to go ask someone and say, okay, you're a witch, okay, so what tradition do you follow? And you done lost them right there. Because everyone has a tradition, a true witch, or even the word witch, I don't even like that word, because it labels you in a way that the world sees it.
Sure.
Ugly, big nose, broom, all this kind of thing.
Think of the crone,
right?
Maybe the old hag, possibly, or you might think, modern media has changed a lot of that. You might think sexy witch, which I think a lot of the younger TikTok, witch talk, right? Which is, there are a lot of those, and think.
Right. And I know that you've had a lot of people on your show like this, so, but I'm just saying is that most people would not even recognize what a real witch would be like. You would never tell if it's a real one or not, and if you met one or not. That's why because you wouldn't know a witch if you really met one. Just saying it like that.
I think magic is based on the results you get in reality. If you can change reality in some way, then you are a witch, a sorcerer, a magician, whatever you want to call it. If you're able to manipulate reality in your favor, and you're making changes through your practices, then you are doing something. It's not necessarily dark and nefarious, though, either, right? I mean, I thought it was a part of your upbringing, though, and I want to hear about that, because satanic ritual abuse, SRA, is like, that's a huge thing. And I hear these stories, they're so fucking dark, man. I don't know how people survive this stuff. The abuse as children and that kind of thing.
Yeah, the ones they're raising cults.
Totally different than anything I've ever been into, or Kristen for that matter.
Well, they teach their children. They pass it on to their children, because I've seen it where their children are there. The same thing. 6, 7, 8 years old, and they're made to watch these rituals. And I mean, you'd be surprised where these rituals are taken. I mean, you may think it's somewhere out in Mexico or somewhere like that. I mean, yes, it's abundant over there, but more in the states here, it is too. It's right in a nice neighborhood. You can go to a country club and you have people doing that. So you just can't just put that aside. But but like I was saying,
Can you describe one of those rituals a little bit for us so that people know what you're talking about?
well, let me see, and give you a nice one.
It don't have to be nice. Tell us what you saw.
Yeah. Um, there's a couple that I guess I remember. Someone, like I said, someone I just didn't.
You blocked out.
Yeah, because I mean now I don't I really don't like to think about it anymore, because it just draws that negative, that energy. It'll still draw it to you. Because if you think about it, you give it life. So
I have
uh,
to imagine it was fairly symbolic in the way it was done.
yeah, it's I mean, it's literally murder. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's an ugly sight to see. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, I don't want you. I want you to stay legal, obviously, but I'm going to probe, and I mean that figuratively, a little bit, just so that people have an idea that aren't familiar with what I think you're talking about, which is more or less SRA.
Well, what it goes more into, okay, like these things, the real bad ones that were more when we used to cross the border and we go into to the Mexico side. And of course, over there, it's a whole nother a whole another world of belief when it comes to these things. And it is Santeria, and it's all, even that. I mean, that's the good. There's good and bad in that too, just like in everything, you know. Um, and they basically, what they do is they just snatch somebody up, and they um, will use them in a ritual, and will conjure up the demon that they're going to use for that ritual. And of course, there has to be blood, and there has to be a sacrifice, and just like what you hear. But I think once you see one like that, I mean, it's not gonna. It's it'll stay with you, because that energy, I don't know when, it just stays with you. But so there's I mean, of course, all the symbolic daggers and stuff that you hear about. I know you've been around all this stuff. I know you've seen it. I mean, may not seen a ritual, but you know what I'm talking about.
Right. I haven't been privy to watching an SRA ritual. But I've been involved in the occult for a very long time. I think you're talking about Santa Muerte, if I'm not wrong. If I'm pronouncing that properly.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing.
I mean, that's all, a lot of the gangs and different things. Supposedly, they worship her, and she's a sort of death goddess. And there's death goddesses in every culture.
Right.
And they're not necessarily negative. It's just what people may interpret the message to be, I guess.
Yeah. Yes, Carol, I have red lights. One over here. She's asking if I have red lights behind me. I have a red one and a blue one.
Oh,
it's not fire. I didn't conjure up any fire.
He's not in hell.
No.
Not in hell.
Yeah.
Chris says, God, I hope so.
Yeah, it's just a gruesome.
At Santeria, and I don't know. I don't know if that's related. I'm not really sure.
Now, this they called it something else, and I don't remember what they called it. Like I said, it was so long ago. That was like that was way back.
Satanic ritual abuse, Joshua, is what SRA stands for, and there are people that have experienced extreme abuse in the name of dark gods.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, it's just that side of thing, and just being around it. But at the same time, everything has helped me to develop, whether it was good or bad. Just like in life, in life we have bad situations, but it makes us stronger. We don't realize that at the time until we get older and we look back at it. You know what? That situation that I was in, it was terrible, but it made me stronger. and sometimes that'll define who you're gonna be if you can get through that. And
Okay.
so to me, like right now, all the things that I've experienced in this time, and this was before I even got and knew that there was a paranormal community. That didn't start what 15 years ago, something like that, when the
In
shows
mass media.
when the shows first started coming out. And that's when I started to. Even then, when I was watching the shows, I never even thought. I didn't even have a team yet. I didn't even think about um, doing anything like that. I didn't even know there was other people. I just knew there was a lot of people that did some bad things. But there was some people that I did know that did good things. Not everybody was bad in my life. I did know a lot of native shamans. I got to dabble a little bit in that, and they worked with the earth and the land, which
Mhm.
was different.
Absolutely.
Their great spirit was different, which I liked. I liked that kind of vibe. It was different than the ones that I was used to.
Certainly their intent was different, and that
Right.
actually would draw
Oh
different
yeah.
pieces, right? Something
So
different.
they were more out to help people than for the well-being of people than the other ones. The other ones were just in for themselves. So they just conjured up whatever they could conjure up and do whatever they had to do to bring this thing forth.
Selfish means, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I got to experience a lot of the things that since we're talking about the 40 years. Um, And actually, this is the first time that I said I've gotten this in depth in it. And I've talked about it before on other podcasts because they've asked me so they want to know what have you done in 40 years? Okay, well, it's my story is that is this.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing with us.
Well, hey, look,
I appreciate it personally, and I know our audience appreciates
I
it.
just wish the bunny was here.
The bunny will be here next time.
Ah.
She's here. She's out in chat.
And so yeah, it just developed from there, like I said, and just keep going. And all these experiences that I've had, they just made me stronger, and just kept developing, and it hasn't stopped to this day. And then when I started getting into when I started seeing the shows, when Ghost Adventures and Taps and Paranormal State first came out, just started to see that, and still didn't even think about doing it. I just thought it was a show. I thought it was kind of cool, but then also too, I would watch the shows, and it was funny because you know how they go to all these real haunted houses. They may not, they may, like all the shows at first, everybody says they all started off good, then they started getting into faking stuff for ratings.
Yeah,
But
this
the
is what
lo-
happens, right? It does happen with all the shows, and I hate to say anything about them because I like those people to come on and share their experiences.
right,
They think I'm a hater. They won't for sure. But I think a lot of people know this in the paranormal. It's like a lot of these shows start off with really good intent, and they try to document their experiences. They have a history of experiences behind them that are legit, but you can't do it on demand necessarily.
right,
In fact, spirits have a certain trickster element to them often where they're not going to do it
right,
because you're on camera,
right.
and they've turned the cameras off, and things probably happen right then. There's like way more to it than I think
Yeah,
than is on the surface.
right. But what used to get me was that the locations where they went were real.
Hmm.
You see what I mean? They may not have been real. Maybe they've been maybe real at first, and then started getting a little crazy, whatever. But the locations were real. And when I used to watch these shows, well, and I still do, but when I watch the shows and I see the locations that they go, I could see things in the TV where they were at, in the room that they're at, and I'm there like yelling at the TV, "Dang, you just missed it!" Or like Zach, I'll be like, "Zach, it's right there on the wall. Look right there, it's right there." Because you're still watching it, so it's
Hmm.
still a film. I mean, you can still see it, and but that's what was funny. But then after that, it wasn't until I really got into when I finally got into social media, and I punched up paranormal one time, and all this stuff started coming out on YouTube. You know, you see all the paranormal people out there investigating, and that's when I found out, just like, wow, man, there's people that are really doing this for real. It's not just a TV show. There's actually people doing this because they don't have a TV show. They're out there just filming in a cemetery. You know,
Out of passion.
right? And so I
I
got
do think, in fairness to those shows, I think a lot of those people did the same thing. They started out with a passion, and the
Right.
training comes like, how do I make this happen every week, or when we're filming, or when budget allows. And I know how to bring about spirit, and they're not showing that part of it, in the show, but it's not happening because the freaking cameras are on, and it's not going to work
Right.
just as planned. So some things apparently got invented,
Yeah.
but it's not to say they're bad investigators or
Right.
not genuine to their craft. It's just, well, how do you do it on that kind of schedule, right? So it's tough. I don't think those people suck. A lot of people put down those shows, and I don't think they suck.
Yeah.
But I don't really believe everything I see on TV either.
Right.
Because I understand it, right?
Right. Yeah. And then, like I said, I was saying, so I started seeing that there was actual people really doing this out there, and so I started to, I guess that's when I started to connect with the paranormal community. That there's other people out here that maybe I can talk to that can understand what I'm talking about, because I've been quiet for so many years, and that's when I decided to say, well, you know what? If they're doing it, I can do it too. I can go out there and I can start gathering evidence, because I got 40 years of stories, but they're just stories. There's no evidence. There's nothing that I can show you of the things that I've seen, that trump everything that I've seen since I started investigating with a team. And so that's when I decided to go ahead and start a team, which is only 4 of us. And there was only 3 of us at the beginning. And one of them is my son, and he has his abilities also. And he's actually the co-founder of Texas Wraith Hunters. And that's when it came up to say, what, I'm going to start my own team, and I'm going to start doing my thing, And like myself, I have the nice equipment, the nice cameras and everything, but I really don't use them. Myself, I don't use. I've tried to use the spirit box, like what Greg they were doing earlier. That was awesome. I have the spirit box and everything, and I can't make that thing do anything for me. I have to use my own spirit box. I am my own spirit box.
Perhaps they see other ways to reach you, and
yeah,
the spirit box, I think it can be a great tool.
I just connect to them. That's it.
Depending on maybe the person using it and their connection to the equipment that somehow radiates through the veil to the other side, to the spirit, something they can see as a beacon.
And then, of course, I'm always going to pop up with this because I like to check people's trees. Is that I've used this since I was 17.
Ah, yes, the Ouija board.
This is my new one. I haven't even. It's still a virgin. I've opened the box, but I haven't used it yet.
Ah, well, if I could pop the cherry and put my hands to the screen, that I
would. So that's actually going on my next investigation here in about 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to be going to mineral wells, and
I've heard of that. Tell our audience about mineral wells.
The haunted hill house. Yeah,
if you don't mind.
So I'll be. They won't let me use it there, but I'll find another place to use it on the way. It's not that far from me. It's only like 4 hours. But that right there, I have used since I was 17, actually 18 years old.
So you're comfortable with that. Do you ever use it by yourself?
Yeah, I've taken it when I was younger. I would take it. I broke every Ouija board rule there is. Don't use it alone. Don't use it in cemeteries. Don't drink. Don't do drugs doing it. I've done it all.
Oh yeah. I've never done anything like that.
I've experienced it. I experimented with everything on it. So, and I did have some. And I hate to use this word, bad experiences, because that's the only thing that you ever hear when it comes to this is the bad experiences. Everybody always asks, so what was the worst experience you had with the board? Wasn't anybody ever asked what was the good things that came out of it?
Right.
Because a lot
of this is built on horror.
Right.
The paranormal is a horror movie.
And most people have had a bad experience, so they stay away from it. But it's because, like you've heard so many times, you didn't know what you were doing, and you came in it with bad energy, already expecting to see Satan or 666 or whatever you thinking it's going to do. And that's exactly like we were talking earlier. You manifested that through it,
That's
and
what you
that's what
got.
you got back. So, but if you come in it with good energy, that's what you're going to get also back. Like we used it not too long ago, maybe like 2 months ago, at another house in Mineola, Texas, and we channeled through it. One of my friends, he was channeling through it. We were using it, and we had a very good positive experience through it that actually stuck with me, and it's still there. I mean, this experience is because that house used to be a brothel, and the when he started to channel, the girl that came, one of the girls, so it was four girls, but one of them came through and started channeling through him. That she was saying that she was left there by her parents, because back in the day, if you remember, not that we were there, but history, when you couldn't afford kids, you would sell them, you would trade them for something. That's what the parents did. Maybe not all of them, but it did happen. So they dropped her off at this house with this
Sad but
man,
true. Yep.
who ran a brothel. They were all young, and told him, "Well, you're going to stay here." And she was saying all this through him. My parents left me here, and they told me to stay with this man, and that he's a friend, but he's no friend. And so he started to use her, as a sex slave, prostitution, and then but what was crazy about it is the way it affected me is that these four young women that were used, and you can imagine what they went through in life, living that life, being forced to do that they already wished they could die. And then when they did pass, they're still trapped in that house, because the same entity, the same man that held them there, that's passed on too, still holds them in the afterlife captive.
Yeah,
And because
that is
so
pure evil in a way, right?
right, so my equipment that I got my tripods, and my tripods are not flimsy. There's some heavy tripods. I mean, it knocked down the camera off of it. It killed the other camera instantly. Um, and we had stuff like poltergeist type of thing, where things were just falling over, and it was very hard to get it on film. And I did end up recording the session on my iPad, and but it was really intense, that it stayed with me, because after we were done with the session, of course we had to you know leave. For me, it's like I just didn't see it like you see on the ghost shows at the end of the show, where they just give fist bumps, and they say, "Okay, great investigation." They fist bump and they say, "Let's go on to the next one."
Good point.
I
Very good.
couldn't go on. I have not moved on from that last investigation, which was like 2.5 months ago,
Mm.
and I'm still stuck there, because those girls, I don't know, it affected me in a way where I left, but they're still there. They're still there right now.
Oh,
With
just want to say, Diddles Level. I'm not sure which page you're on. We go out to several Facebook pages, so if you're on one that aren't occupied by other people, I apologize, but we do appreciate you joining from Australia. And also Joshua on your team there. It says he killed my phone talking about the investigation.
Yeah, that's my co-host and my Texas Wraith Hunters member.
Right on.
Yeah, he was there, and I mean, he's like he's saying it just knocked everything over. I mean, it knocked the camera over, it killed the other camera. I mean, we had such hard time with the equipment. I mean, just one after another. I mean, I'm talking about just boom, 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 boom. And but that one has stayed with me. That even here, when I would talk about it, I would get emotional, because I could feel their pain, that the pain that they had in life, and now what they're going through, even in the after, they're still held there. They're still there. So I don't ever see myself ever doing that myself. It's going on to the next one. This one's been really hard for me
Knock
to.
the clock over.
Yeah, the clock. I was just thinking about that the other day, because it was those square. It's a square clock. Like this is it's a square clock with four legs, with the legs on the bottom. I know those old style of clocks. Um, Kind of like the one you saw. You ever seen the movie Titanic? The one
Mm-hmm.
that's sitting on the on the fireplace, something like that. It's a big clock. That thing will not fall over. If they got knocked over, but there's no wind. This is up in the attic. There's nothing wind strong enough that can knock that over. This is to be inside. That fell over, and that was just something that straight up just pushed that, or pushed it over. And
Right.
and
Yeah, that's something like the manifestation of that. One of the points Lloyd Auerbach, brings up in this book here that I was talking about the photography is that sometimes the person taking the photograph will, through psi or psychokinesis, make the imprint themselves of the apparition. Do you think, is it possible, or have you considered that maybe it's yourself with your abilities and your darkest fears, your shadow self, like projecting out?
Yeah, I think so.
Something, or is that just no? That's a no.
No, I think so. I think that you sometimes if you can project that you're going to project that energy. So without in your subconscious, without you even knowing that you're doing it, and so this is why debunking comes in as we call it. You have to still kind of bring in the science of it, and like myself, even though I've said all this about me, well, part of it. Uh, I'm still a big skeptic.
Mm-hmm.
There's still
I think some part of ourselves has to stay that way because there are so many things we just don't know. We know what feels right, and you can just go with that. But then sometimes you can look back on things, and the data you collected looks completely different than the day you looked at it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and there are certain audio things Chris and I have listened to, and we go back and we listen to, oh my God, I never heard that. We must have listened to that thing 100 times. And then there's clearly it's stating something, that we just completely missed because of the mood we're in, or maybe our ears are tired. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I believe so because I know my abilities, and I know I can do things sometimes without realizing that I'm doing it. Like I'm saying, hey, I didn't mean to hit you, but I did. I didn't do it physically, but I did. You know what I mean?
Right.
So something like that. Yeah, you can do it. So you really have to be focused and really know yourself and what you're doing and where you're
That's
at.
a great answer, and I really appreciate that you actually consider those things.
Yeah, I mean, you have
a lot of them that really go over the heads of a lot of investigators.
Yeah, I mean, like say you have to, you cleanse yourself, you get your energy right, you get rid of all the things that are all the negative thoughts that you have because we all have them. We're thinking about this, thinking about that, whatever. You have to really clear all that, clear yourself. Meditate before you do this, but that takes a long time to learn too. It's not just something that just comes overnight, and to be able to pull yourself down into that other state, and then to be able to go into these places like that, and because you're gonna deal with some things sometimes, and so that you don't project your thoughts on it too, or what you want to see, or we all want to see something. Of course, as investigators, we want to get the best evidence. Like I want to see. I'm waiting for the ground to open up and something just literally come out physically.
Right?
Something
that just can't be denied.
Yeah, like you see in the movies. You know what I mean? Why can't I see that? Just ground cracks open.
It's almost like the carrot, right?
Right.
And things of that nature kind of are like the carrot and the donkey in a way, because you want these things that maybe sometimes aren't so realistic, but then something happens that, wow, physics doesn't explain that. So how did that work?
But you can get pretty close to it. I mean, you can get pretty close to it. And there are some things that you will see, and they'll be there. No can appear. Because I've done a lot of crazy things. Like conjure up pentagrams on fire.
Right. And here's another thing. When you do something like that, is it subjective? So your abilities are enabling you to see that pentagram on fire. Like say you're doing a banishing ritual, a pentagram, something like that. Drawing it out. You see it. Do other people in the room see it? Now that's where it gets weird, right?
Yeah.
Because some of these things that happen with spirit, it could be the smell of a cigar or perfume, right? Pretty common thing. one person in the group smells it, the rest don't. Why is that? It's because of their connection, I think.
Yeah, it's just where they're at. You know what I mean? Like there's still some more development to go in. But you can get around a person that can be so strong that they can pull you into that realm.
Absolutely.
So
I
yeah, you can get around. You can get around. I mean, you don't necessarily have to be there. I mean, you can do it. I could do it from here remotely. I mean, it doesn't matter. I don't have to be there.
That's right. That's right.
So, but I'm trying to get to the team.
Oh yeah, all right.
I'm trying to get to the team. So
I'm gonna let some of this heady stuff go. I love to get into the heady stuff and just like really know what people are thinking. So I apologize because I didn't really. I was saying, hey, I was gonna just ask you about your
Hey,
child.
I podcast too, so I gotta get to the point too.
Yeah,
but
no, I understand, my friend.
But no, just to bring the team on. That's when I started. Me and my son, which is my co-founder, and then like we spoke earlier, we are not affiliated with Tennessee Race Chasers. And my name did not follow from there.
The Tennessee Race.
Yeah, and I didn't name my team after them. My people, I've been asked where did I get the name from. Race actually comes from my race car, because I used to race also and drag race and street race, and but that's where it came from because I named my car the Wraith, and
not in a Mike Tyson sort of way. I'm assuming.
Yeah, the what? Well, no, but it was so I named it. I named the team. Well, I named the team name Wraith because of because my car used to get away from the cops all the time. I'll be out street racing or whatever. Okay, yeah, I did that too. But you do get chased sometimes because you're out there racing, and I could always get away in it because it's just fast. So I just said, you know what, you're like a ghost, man. So I called it the Wraith because the Wraith is a specter, it's a ghost. You just disappear. So when I was there thinking about, well, what can I call my team? Because Ghost Hunters, Ghost Paranormal, Ghost, everything is it's already taken, So it just came to me. I said, well, you know what? Why don't you just call it Wraith? Because a Wraith is a ghost, just like your car. So name it Wraith. So it's actually named after my race car, not after any other group. And then I just added Hunters, and then of course I had to add Texas on there, which I'll be dropping pretty soon. It's just going to be Wraith Hunters, but Texas Wraith Hunters. So that's where it came from.
International, my friend. I like the Wraith World. So Wraith World Podcast. How do people do that? How do people reach out to you, talk to you, hear your interviews?
Oh,
you talk because you're an interesting man.
Yeah, that one right there is just look up on Facebook Wraith World Podcast and or just go to my profile, Anthony Ceballos, and you can find me there. But I would just, the Wraith World Podcast or Texas Wraith Hunters too. Go to that page also, but preferably the Wraith World Podcast. But so that's where the name came from, and then we ended up getting my wife's my wife's nephew. He's in it, Mark, and then Joshua, which. He's actually was my car salesman. He sold me a bunch of cars.
And you believe him? He must be a good.
Yeah, he was good at it, man. He sold me 5 cars, man. And so he came on board, and then so there was there's our 4, but it was just me, my son at first for a little while, and then Mark came in. We got him in, and then Mark has his abilities too, and Joshua does too. So we all have our own abilities, and then we just started. That's when I just started thinking, well, we're gonna start filming. We're gonna start doing this the right way. It's like I always say, you can go to Texas Wraith Hunters on YouTube, and there's videos on there, in the podcasts. My other podcasts are on there also, but I have some videos on there, which some of them are in a satanic bridge that we went to. And then also too in a forest that we go to in San Antonio, where I believe that there's either a skinwalker or a Bigfoot, because we've experienced a lot of things the same things that you hear about on these other documentaries of the evidence that they get when they're being followed by a Bigfoot. So right now I'm kind of into that cryptid part of it now. because I know
They
we
exist. I do.
yeah.
Now, do you think that cryptids are something that's interdimensional, or do you feel that that is something that is more of a physical, living, breathing nature?
Well, what happened to us in this forest? Because we've been there 6 times, and this is and every time we go to San Antonio, which we'll be going here soon, we always go there, and it's a big forest, and you hear native drums, you hear women crying, uh, the when that whatever it was that came out, it followed us, and we knew that we were being followed. 'Cause we walk about 3 to 4 to 6 miles in that forest, and um, so you're in there the dark at night in there. There's nobody around you, you know what I mean? So if something happens, you're done. And um but in there when we had something that came out and it growled at us really real heavy that I felt it in my chest. And I think that's one of those is on there. I think it's called the Bigfoot or something like that on there. Uh that would jump from one side to the other side without making any noise through the brush or anything. Like it growled here and then it moved and jumped on this side and then it got behind us and then in front of us, but really fast. Like
Do
we
you
were
think it
so
was trying to protect something?
well. We did run into a jogger that was in there one time, and I asked him. We were looking for a house because there's a 2-story house way in there, and we started to ask him. I asked him if actually that the hitchhiker, not the hitchhiker, the hiker, it's on there too. There's a video on him. That's a very very good video interview with him because we're in the forest and he's talking about what he's experienced in there, and he's showing us pictures about how well, not only just the pictures, but he's showing us right there because there's branches that are broke, and like I said, when you watch these Bigfoot these other Bigfoot shows where they talk about the Bigfoot and how he marks his territory by breaking the branches or turning things, over being territorial. It's all in there, and I mean, and this was before the stuff that we experienced in there. I didn't even know anything about it till several months afterwards when I came back and I ran across these shows or ran across these other people being interviewed that were given the same experiences that we experienced in there, and so that's when I started to connect it. As far as that one goes, is that there's something else in there that's not that forest has an urban legend, but it goes beyond that legend. This is something else is back there that a lot of people have not. Well, I haven't ran into really anybody that's tapped into that forest. So, and I've taken 2 groups in there, and they've experienced these because we did feel that we did cross over into another dimension because I could see it. I could see the wall shimmering like this, and we couldn't
Really?
walk. We couldn't walk through it, and I had to find a hole in it, and we had to crawl to go under it. But what was crazy about it was it's no more than 5 feet, no, but maybe like 10 feet from the other side of it. My member and the other girl that was in there with us, they couldn't see us, but I could see them. We could see them, and we're right there, no more than 15 feet apart, but with this wall in between us. Because she wasn't a member; she was just somebody that was there with her husband that went in with us, and she was telling my member that where did we go because they couldn't see us, but we could see them. We were right there in front of them, but there was that wall. You could see it. It was transparent, but it was shimmering, and
Sort of like Predator, like Krista mentioned. George asked, what was the name of that forest?
that forest is actually it's in the Medina Riverway. If you look up Donkey Lady Bridge,
Donkey Lady Bridge.
yeah,
Okay.
that's the urban legend. There is a bridge there, and there is an apparition. We did. My son and my other member saw it that the first night that we went in there, but that's the night that we also went in deeper and we experienced all these other things that were in there. There's just so much. But if you go on Google and you look up Donkey Lady Bridge, San Antonio, Texas, you'll see that forest.
Wow. Oh, that is badass.
Yeah, there's I never get enough of that place. That is the first time that we went in there. A lady and her husband, their friend and their nephew, which was a young fella. They went in there, and the husband and the nephew ended up getting. I believe they got possessed because they zoned out. They zoned out. She started getting all hysterical because she kept saying, "They're all around us. They're all around us." I says, "I know they're all around us, but you got to stay calm." And we're so far in there, and I was trying to tell her husband, "You need to get your wife out because she's fixing to lose it." But they were motionless. They froze like statues. But they were making fun of the noises that were in there. They were being really. They were saying sexual things about them. You know what I mean? Like they're doing this or
The donkey lady, of course, brings
yeah.
back sexual thoughts, right?
So they
I was
were
thinking
what they
a
were
while,
doing.
like, what?
Yeah,
What?
they
What are
were
we talking
mocking it. They were mocking it.
Josh says, wasn't there something about a shoe?
A shoe.
That was the same story. I'm assuming Josh saw one of your shows and
Oh,
maybe
Joshua.
heard some of this. Joshua.
The shoe. I don't remember that. I don't know which one that is.
All right, maybe that was related to something else. No, that's really interesting, and it's really cool that you looked into the urban legend and then you got back these kind of incredible results.
Right. When I did the research on that land, because we did that, it's because my son is a music artist also. We had just done a show. And so we, after the show, it was about 11 o'clock at night, and said, well, let's just go find somewhere to go. And we weren't even going to go, we weren't thinking about investigating or anything. Actually, that's where the team started, when I decided, hey, let's do this for real now. And from that experience. And so it was, it was I done it last one. I'm thinking about the shoe now, Josh. uh, but that's where it started from. There was just so many things there. Oh, I did the research on the land when we got back, and I found out that land, of course, San Antonio and all the South Texas, because all the battles we fought there for Texas back in the day. There's so much history on that land. There's so much native burial grounds that they built buildings over, houses, plazas. Um, but that land that we were at, that forest, dated back 10,000 years because they had found artifacts and they dated it. Because they were building a dam and they found those artifacts and they dated them back
10,000 years.
10,000 years.
Almost to Younger Dryas, right?
Right.
So you're talking about really old civilizations.
Right. And you can Google that too. Just look up Google Applewhite Dam, San Antonio, Texas, and when they were building it back in 1981, because you got to do your research, investigators.
Yeah, you do.
So
Yeah,
I researched it and I found that out. So I started thinking like, okay, this forest has been here for that long, and the natives have been here for that long. So in 10,000 years, how many generations passed on here? And so where did they bury them? They're buried there because we heard native drums at one time that we were in there, and you could hear them boom, 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 boom.
One thing that popped in my head, Anthony, when you mentioned the native drums, right? We have a place out here, one Kristen used to play at as a child, actually. I'm trying to include you in the show, Kristen. I see you in the chat. And it's called Anawan Rock. And it's where Chief Anawan surrendered, basically, to the white man, which more or less ended the King Philip's War, which is a big war between the white man, the colonists, and the natives up here. Is a very historical war, and one of the things people say about it, and I've even heard recordings of, is the drums. They'll hear the drums from the rock, right, in the middle of the night, and you just have to wonder. You mentioned, I think, a woman crying, and that reminded me of what my parents used to tell me about a house we lived in when I was young. I have these crazy memories about, but one thing they remembered was hearing babies crying, these vulnerable things that would get your attention. It's almost like they wanted to get your attention, and how it transmutes from the other side to ours may take on different forms. I wonder if sometimes, like, wow, the drums, it meant a lot to that spirit in their life, and was like a big attention. If the drums are playing down there, you know what I mean? Let's go hear the drums. Like how much we misinterpret because they want to just get our attention. we often get messages like "help me," and you go, well, how am I supposed to help you, right? But that was a thing in life that really gets your attention, right? If you
Yeah.
help me, you're going to turn your head, right. So I wonder, how does that work with like native drums if you're part of that culture
Yeah.
in life, in death, with
Well,
babies crying, with
there's
women crying?
definitely,
Those are things that get your attention.
yeah, there's definitely things that will get your attention in there, because we also saw what looked like fireflies, and that fireflies light up like a green or a yellowish. Well,
Mhm.
these lit up that color, but they also lit up green. They also lit up blue, red, um,
Red.
blue, red, green,
Wow.
and maybe like an orange color too, and then and just bright white. And it was like a lot of them, just like a lot of them, and they would follow us as we were walking. But they also, you could feel that they were drawing you, and they were drawing us to go deeper, because it's a pathway. It's like a bike trail that they built. Like I said, 10,000 years. Where did the natives were buried? They're all buried there. So how many in 10,000 years are there buried? And then they come 10,000 years later to our time, and they build a bike route through there. You know what I mean? It's 17 miles
Right.
through there. They built a bike route right through the middle of the
Right
forest,
through
where
the middle.
all these people are buried, all these natives that are pissed off because they got killed or whatever happened,
Mhm.
and they're there. And
They want to say, "Get the fuck away," and maybe that translates into native drums.
right,
It's kind of like the Over the Hedge movie, right? Where you have the population just decreasing and eating up all the forests and all the sacred lands, even, and the animals are all kind of like, "Hey, what do we do?" I think it may be true for spirit
yeah,
as well, and maybe more people do have haunted houses because we've expanded. There's no
right,
goddamn room for the spirits to even habitate without bumping into you,
right,
us. You know what I mean? And they may see us better than we see them. I don't know.
yeah. And the crazy thing about this too is that these fireflies, as I call them, would draw you to go off the path and into the forest, and you could feel it, like they're calling you. Because we did, it was, so we've been there 6 times, but that time there, it was drawing us to go into the forest and to follow it, to go deeper into the forest. And I was hesitant to go in, because I know there's a river right there too. It's got a bridge, and there's a river that goes through there. It's part of the San Antonio River. And so it dawned on me that, hey, wait a minute, these things are calling us to go, or drawing us to go into the forest. Let me see where we're at. So I pulled out my phone, and good thing that we have signal. And I looked on satellite. Well, the river was right there. So if we would have kept on following these lights, that we would have actually fallen into the river. Because the story is that lady, she was burned, and she was burned so bad because the it was a young kid that was hitting her donkey, and she got mad at it. Mad at the kid. The kid went back to town back in the day, and his dad was somebody. So him and his friends came back and burned the house down with the lady in it and
Oh
killed the
my god!
donkey. And she broke out through the window, and she was so burned that her face melted in the shape of a donkey. Her hands melted like hooves,
It's,
her fingers, and she fell in the river, and they never found her. So now she comes out as an apparition, angry to attack anybody who goes in there.
it's much different than the Tijuana story I knew. Uh,
So
Kristen said Thai Palankas, and she's referring to kind of like the spook
right.
lights that are often noticed in some of these areas.
Yeah. No, these were actual little fireflies. They were like flying around, but they weren't flies. They moved different. You know, but they looked just like the lights. You could actually see them. It wasn't hard. They were right there, and they'll stop in front of you because, like I said, but that those deals were making us were wooing us to go into the forest so we could fall in the river. And if I would have looked on satellite, we probably would have fell in there. And that river, it's like on a end of a kind of almost like a cliff. You're gonna fall. You're gonna fall. You're gonna get hurt, and you're gonna probably land in the water and drown.
It's
You
sort of
know,
a Hansel and Gretel kind of thing.
right? And then, but back to the drums. If anybody's native in the comments, what I found is that the natives, when a native would die, would pass on, the shaman of the tribe would play the drum from sundown, I think, to sun up, I think, or from sun up to sundown, one of the two. But he would play that drum as part of the funeral procession. So when I said when I found that, I was like, well, that's the drum that we heard because they're buried here. So that could be a residue or something from the past that they're playing that drum because they're buried here. So that's when I started to think about it. It's like, well, it does go back 10,000 years. And so where did the natives go? They're here. They're buried here. Because we already know that San
Yeah, but
Antonio
think
and all of
about
South Texas it's all one giant burial ground. I mean, you can Google that too, and you'll see it that they built the plaza right over a native cemetery. You know, there's no shame in it. But
there was
but
no respect back then. You know?
right. But that's where the team started, and that's where Texas Wraith Hunters was born from. And then we just started investigating everywhere we could go, which is mainly down South Texas, you know. And then I'll try to get to. I know I'm skipping a whole lot, but
Oh, that's all right. We've covered a lot of
but
stuff.
but then the podcast came out, Wraith World Podcast. Of course, Wraith comes out of Texas Wraith Hunters. Wraith World Podcast came to me as far as building a platform just like yourself, and we've seen with the P3 family and Parapose, which I want to give a shout out because they've been accepting me into their families, which they're awesome
Oh,
people.
please do. There's
Yeah,
some great networks out there. Parapost, Paranormal United Network that we're broadcasting on right now, as well as our own pages. And we love those people.
Yeah.
Paranormal UK Radio Network has been so good to us. Love
Right.
you. Yeah, no, I
So what's up, Matt? What's up, Brian?
Matt Barron is
yeah.
a great dude.
And
The show, we love him.
so that was actually came to me to build a platform where, because when I started getting into the paranormal now and started getting into the social media, meeting so many people and so seeing everything that goes on, I started to see also again the darker side of paranormal, which I mean the drama and everything else. People fighting each other, people fighting over locations. I can, people fighting
because I been through it too.
Yeah, groups claiming a location and actually getting into fit fights with other groups to show up because that's their location. All this para unity thing that people talk about, but where's it at?
Those people are full of shit.
Yeah, where's it at?
Are very few people that really they don't care. They just want you to do well.
Yeah. So I decided, well, you know what? I think I'm going to start my own podcast. And this is the way I'm going to do it, where I have a platform where people can the guests that I come on to promote them, to get them out, because there's still a business side to the paranormal, but a good way of business, not the ugly way. Because you want to get your name out, you want to get out, because that does open doors for you to be able to investigate some of these bigger places that they do. They're going to look at you and they're going to look at your reputation or who you are, and they'll maybe just allow you to come into their place.
Mhm.
And so the good side of promoting, that's what I mean. Not just promoting for fame and everything else, promoting people to get them out there so they can grow bigger and network them with other people. And that's when I ran into I ran across Matt Barron on the P3 one day, and I started listening to him. And I actually called him. I haven't told him yet, but we talk all the time. But I actually called him back when he used to rant. I don't know if you remember him when he used to rant. It wasn't too long ago, but he did. So I said, "Man, this is pretty cool," and but they stopped that already. But I started listening to them and how they conducted themselves, how they were talking about bringing in more people and helping them to get out, but no drama, no nothing, bringing the right people.
He's doing some good stuff out there.
Right.
So what I wanted to ask you, and I think maybe we can wrap up this, right? We got Wraith World Podcast, and people know how to find that. You mentioned that you had gone through the occult, that you had gone through the Christian church, and then you moved on from that. What spiritual aspects do you maintain now in your present life?
Now for me, I'm just going kind of back in a way I've accepted who I am. I finally, now that I know more about it, so I'm more. Well, this has helped me a lot.
Okay. It's a book called The Power of the Witch, and it's written by whom?
Laurie Cabot.
Laurie Cabot.
Laurie Cabot.
Yes, who is from our area, Salem, Massachusetts, which is just a short drive away.
Mm-hmm.
But some people will hear this as a podcast, so I want to descriptive.
So that's where I'm at now. That's just helped me.
I think you're in a good place, my friend.
That's what has helped me tremendously to harness my energy and to focus on the for the better of people. So that's really what the podcast is about. That's the way I have it. That's the way it's going to stay. I bring on people that are serious on what they're doing, and they really want to do something and make a difference in this paranormal society that we're in. And I know right now it's very hard. I came in actually at a hard time because a lot of the paranormal people have already screwed a lot of things up.
Yeah.
So we already have a bad name.
And it's all new territory to a lot of the population.
Right.
So, you have to be gentle with that.
Right.
Certainly when we get into some of the darker aspects and things you've seen, which has been so interesting. And I really appreciate you sharing that with us tonight, Anthony. What are the best places to find you?
Yeah, like I said, a Wraith World Podcast on Facebook, Texas Wraith Hunters on Facebook, or my name, Anthony Ceballos, on Facebook, Texas Wraith Hunters on YouTube.
Okay, there is a YouTube outlet. We had people asking that aren't Facebookers, and I have some friends like this. They just will not go on Facebook. They don't want to deal with the drama.
Yeah.
They go with YouTube. Where can they find you on YouTube?
Yeah, Texas Wraith Hunters on YouTube.
Just look that up. The search will come up. All right.
Yeah. And I think some of them have my little ghost, and that was pretty cool with that little ghost on the
thumbnail.
On the thumbnail, yeah. His name is Spooks.
Spooks the ghost.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, he's pretty cool.
He's definitely cool. Is there a story behind Spooks that you want to
tell? Spooks. He's actually the mascot. He's the first logo that came to me, and then the logo with the Texas and the demon in the middle. I don't think you saw that one. Oh, it's the one behind me. The one right here, right behind me on my wall.
Oh yeah, I see that. I did see that.
That one.
Your profile page. That is cool as heck. And this has been a great talk, my friend. I think we got to have you back, and we got to finish this conversation because.
And actually, Matt named me the Race Prince because he did an intro for me. Because all my other intros, I don't know if you've seen them. I do all my editing. But he did do an intro for me, and he called me the Wraith Prince. So it kind of stuck on me. I said, hey, you know what? That sounds pretty cool. So I'm just going to go by the Wraith Prince because I was going by the Wraith, and then he added Prince, so it looks pretty cool. I like it, Wraith Prince.
Which is not Mike Tyson talking about race cars.
Yeah.
All right. That was my little joke. I think only you and I got it, but that's cool. Hey, whatever. This has been a lot of fun.
But we also, before we go, I do have a lot of big things coming this year. This year,
what events do you have coming?
This year, this last year was really. My team took a break to get a lot of things straightened out with themselves, and so that gave me time to start the podcast and get that platform going and everything, and which is done really well, tremendously. I mean, I didn't even see it. It took off. I mean, in 13 days, it hit 500 followers on it.
Nice.
So I mean, they're still growing, and then but now this beginning of this year here, now we're gonna go. We're actually Josh has moved back here to Odessa for a little while, so I got him. So we're gonna go back into the investigating. So now we're moving back into the Texas Wraith Hunters side of it. I'll still be podcasting, of course, but we're gonna start doing more investigating now, especially with the new equipment that I got. I can't wait to use it. Use all the new toys. I love the cameras that I got. I mean, I can't wait to use that. I've been wanting that one for a long time. And we are going to be going to Mineral Wells, to the Haunted Hill House. I can look that one up. That's a pretty wild house. And then I'm going to start hitting a lot of the places while I'm still here, because I'm still planning to move by the end of the year to San Antonio, because the paranormal is just wild. There's just so much. It's a candy store, and so we'll be moving over there and continue doing. I have some other plans for that, and then I mean, I got so much going this year. This year is just crazy. I'm even thinking about even doing a paranormal Texas Wraith World presents Paranormal Fest.
I'll keep us in that loop. Our friend
Yeah.
Jack Kilowatt says definitely need to have Anthony back. So many questions to be asked. And I love that. That's the kind of response we want to hear from our
Oh,
audience.
yeah.
So this has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
People need to seek you out.
Hey, I hadn't even started drinking yet.
No better time than now, my friend.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot. I thought I was on the Petri. I thought I was on the Petri show again.
Yeah, right. We love Howie. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for joining us.
All right.
And this has been great. Stick around. We're going to wrap things up right now.
Thank you for having me. Thank you to all the viewers and everybody in the comments. I know I missed a bunch of y'all. Couldn't catch them all.
No, there were so many. Thanks, guys. This has been great. It's getting late. We love you. Thank you for all your comments. We will try to get to them, and we will bring Anthony back another time, and we'll talk some more. Be safe. Take care.